heard anything about...
charges that come from the U.S. Attorney's Office in relation to the attack on the mail carrier?
There is some discussion about that. I don't know where that will go.
So it's
Ryan,
11 total attacks?
11 total, yes.
Okay, what do we know about this guy?
Well, we will hear more, again, when we arraign him on these charges. We know, obviously, he has that first charge. The court at that point found sufficient evidence to find him dangerous and to hold him without bail.
Have you heard anything about why these attacks happened? Because at the time, if I recall, no one was robbed.
No one was robbed. There does not appear to be, at this point in the investigation, any particular connection either between the victims and the defendant or the victims to each other. So to that extent, and given the wide range of ages of victims as well as the demographics of the victims, they appear to be random.
Why did it take so long for us to hear that someone was arrested or charged with any part of the case? And is anyone getting the $5,000 reward?
So there was a release at the time that the defendant was charged originally, back in December. And although we did get various information, the actual identity of this alleged perpetrator was gathered through the investigative efforts. So no, there was no particular tip that led to identification of the perpetrator.
Was the cell phone data what tied the suspect to all the...
Was part of the investigation.
And witness IDs?
Okay. There was witness interviews, there were cell phone records and data, there was surveillance video. This was really an example of a methodical, thorough investigation that involved information on a lot of fronts, including the witness and victim statements.
This investigation obviously took some time. What were some of the challenges that investigators faced?
Well, I think you have, first of all, as you will recall, at the time that the information was coming out, the attacks were continuing. So you are really sort of working on both feet. You are working on what you know about the past attacks, and you are also seeking to look at the present attack, trying to figure out are there connections. You know, this was a process, and it is a process that led to first the charging on the November 11th attack that happened in December, and then the additional charges today as a result of the other attacks.
How are the victims doing?
Obviously relieved, many still dealing with the after effects of what happened, but clearly relieved. You know, they, as the chief said, they put our trust in us. They were cooperative. They were helpful in every step of the investigation, as well as other witnesses, and clearly relieved for us to be able to tell them that we have identified and charged the alleged perpetrator.
Are there long-term physical effects with some of them?
I don't know that at this point.
Do they have any sort of motive for the attacks?
No. As I said, there appears to be no connection. No one was robbed. The demographics of the victims suggest that they were not in any way connected. I know there was some information early on that they may have been somewhat planned. That's planned in the sense that what we know at this point is the perpetrator appeared in some cases to have been waiting for someone. It just was clearly a case of somebody being in the place where he was at the wrong time, rather than he was looking for a particular person. Yes?
In mid-December, your office said basically that Cloven's Janvier was not the suspect in the random attacks. Can you tell me what changed to lead your office to decide that he was the suspect?
I think we did not necessarily respond to whether we were able to link him to the others. Obviously, the investigation took us to a different place.
What blunt objects were used?
There were a variety of allegations of objects. We don't necessarily know all of those. Many of the victims were struck from behind or to the side and only felt an object striking them.
What, if any, kind of history does the suspect have with police?
I'm sorry?
What, if any, kind of history does the suspect
Those are things that we'll be talking about at the arraignment.
How did the pandemic change the course of the investigation in particular? And how did the pandemic present another challenge?
Well, obviously it's more difficult to gather with people. There were, you know, this is also obviously a time when many times you are able to see people who are out and about who may have seen things, particularly during November, cold weather, people staying at home more. That lessens it. So that's why we really relied a great deal on a lot of the sort of more forensic pieces, the forensic testing, the surveillance, the cell phone records, those pieces of information. Thank you all.